I don't know how.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Marcus Carey.
All right, cool. Hey, appreciate you. Appreciate y'all. I see some familiar faces. See some shipmate over there. I'm ex-Navy. So real quick background. Josh kind of uh talked a lot about me for a second. He had to do that. So I've been doing cybersecurity stuff pretty much since I was 18 years old. When I was 18 years old, I joined the military. I joined the U.S. Navy. Did cryptography in the military. Any I know we have at least one sailor. We have any other sailors in the house? Any veterans? Only one. All right, man. I'm usually we have a lot of veterans in these spaces. So so what I started, I moved to Austin a long time ago. Josh is probably one of the first people I met. I know several people here that have known me for years, and I've been always doing R&D. I'm kind of always on the bleeding edge, always trying out the latest and greatest stuff, and so I was the ultimate skeptic on AI for the longest time, and I think a lot of people in here we're cybersecurity people, so we're naturally skeptic of everything we see. So how many people are skeptics now on AI and cybersecurity? You raise your hand. Skeptics. How many people using AI for like OS related stuff? Like, are y'all using it for your day-to-day job? Web app testing. So we said 3 people, 4 people maybe, out of everybody. I want to encourage everybody in here to start using it for your day-to-day, because I mean this is I tell people, like, when I started getting interested in AI when I was like 8 years old. I just turned 50 last weekend too. Crazy enough, I'm 50. So can't believe it. So when I was 8 years old, this movie called War Games came out, and show of hands, who's seen War Games in here? The youngsters, y'all need to get on it. All y'all youngsters, yeah. It's a must see movie. I tell people that if you want to kind of understand any kind of culture, because there's this whole AI culture, huh? 100%. Yeah. So War Games is like one of the first AI. It's one of the early old school early AI meets computer security. It has everything in there. So so I saw that game and I was like, man. I mean, I saw that movie and I was like, man, I want to work with computers. When I turned 18 years old, I joined the military and I got into computers because um, I did cryptography, and it was in the Navy. It was kind of a tenant command for NSA, and so I got to work for NSA when I was 18 years old around the world doing all kind of signals intelligence and communications and cryptography and all that stuff. So I went from wanting to be friggin' 10 years earlier, wanting to do kind of cool stuff with, military and intelligence and all that stuff, into to 10 years later, I was actually working, for NSA. And I did that for about 8 years. 8 years I did that whole thing. And so what's cool about that is I joined the military in 1993. The internet was kind of starting to pop then. And because I worked for NSA Tenant Command, and I actually was stationed at NSA, I worked at NSA for about 4 years proper at Fort Meade. So it gave me access to all this computer stuff and all that stuff. Well, it was freaking awesome. And so I'm 50 now. So 32 years of my life, I've been working in bleeding edge technology. And I tell people, when it comes to technology, I'm the Black Forrest Gump, or like Bubba Gump, maybe. I'm so the reason why I want to encourage all people that are in cybersecurity, because I think that cybersecurity is typically, we have roles and we kind of support organizations, and in that regard, we advise leadership on what they need to be doing. So now I've read a ton of books. Oh, are we doing okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, cool. So I've read a ton of books. I'm gonna give y'all some book recommendations and things of that nature. And because I think that I want people to understand AI and also understand LLMs. So I'm going to give you a lot of resources that you can kind of get deeper into AI and like machine learning, because this is what this is all a part of. Now, whoever we say we have some skeptics in here, you can't be a worse skeptic than me. I was the worst skeptic. I didn't believe anything that anybody said, but lately, last last 3 years, I've been working hardcore with LLMs and building crazy LLM applications. And what I'm gonna do is walk you through like the mindset and like how we need to be thinking and how we need to be thinking moving forward. So Tribe of Hackers is a book. We got a new Tribe of Hackers on artificial intelligence coming out very soon, the next couple of months, which is going to be dope. All right, so basically the challenge, I'm thinking of the challenge, like everybody in here, your role is a Herculean task of securing your organization, right? And so if you're an organization, I think that like AI, the way, I mean, people say AI, LLMs, large language models, these large language models have totally changed the game for anybody. And how it's changed the game big time is because you now one person based on your knowledge, it's a 10x multiplier. 10x. And I kind of compare it to the early days of Google. And even like with Google, like if you the old way to learn stuff, or like not, I mean, when Google came out, when search engines were popping, you used to search for what you wanted to learn, right? And but what's cool about learning stuff is you get to ask better questions. That's what's cool about it. You come in, you don't know anything about a subject matter, but then the more you know about it, the better search terms you can get. So the more you know, it's like a snowball effect, right? Now, cybersecurity, for cybersecurity professionals, this does not mean you have to quit learning about cybersecurity, right? I view AI as a companion to help us get better and better, because the more I learn how to speak to the large language models, the better outcomes I'm going to get. It's just like the Google thing. So the more I know, the more I can ask better questions. And also from a context perspective, I can give it better context to do what I needed to do. And that's how I've been building applications, right? It's context is king. And I'll talk about that in a little bit here. Context, 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 right? So the more context I know, the better I can ask questions, the better better outcomes going to get. Now, experimentation. So we all need to do experiments. We all need to start experimenting with the large language models, because I'm 100% convinced. And I'm laughing because I remember me and Josh, he's a skeptical bastard right there. I'll tell you that. And we've had these debates over time, and I've actually seen him come. I was a skeptic, he was a skeptic, but I can see both of us have slowly came around, because the more context we give it, like the stuff that Josh was doing is cool. Like, hey, give me a joke and give me this and give me that. But what we found is the more context and the more experimentation we do, the better it can do. So, for instance, like when the large language models first came out, the context windows were super small. You could barely put anything into them, like 4,000 tokens or something like that, right? Where most people started popping, right? Most people started playing around 4,000 tokens, which meant you could maybe give it like a paragraph or so, right? But now, like Claude and even Chat GTP and some of the other ones, they have like $200,000, not $1,000, but 200,000 tokens. That means you can put a book into it. This is crazy. So any kind of OWASP guidance, since OWASP, we're talking about OWASP here a little bit in web app. So any kind of web application things that you can think of, any kind of documentation, you can probably put it in there and ask it a question. So the OWASP top 10, OWASP has a LLM top 10 now for all these different things. So those things, and most of the times you're going to find that chat is kind of, it knows of these things, right? But from a contextual standpoint, you need to give it more information. So what I do, and this is where the experimentation comes in, start giving it more data. So I'm specifically talking about this, and this is what I want results on. That's how you get it like really chugging along. No, and also what you can do, and you have to, it depends on your policies and all that stuff, is like, hey, look, I want to do an OWASP assessment based on the OWASP top 10. Here's this, I'm looking at this web app. Give it all the web app source code or something like that, right? And then you're going to be able to do that too. So now it knows exactly what the context we're talking about. and you giving it all the source code, so it's going to be able to do an assessment. So think of any kind of book, any kind of guidance, whether it's the DISA stuff, DISA STIGs, or any kind of document you want to talk about, or PCI documentation, or whatever kind of documentation that you're up against, you're going to be able to feed it that context and your source code and what other context that you need. And that's how I kind of use it now. I use it for all the stuff I know, because in reality, you're going to reference that stuff anyway, right? You might know some stuff off the top of your head, but the cool thing is, like, for any job, nobody knows everything all the time, right? So you're going to have to experiment, and you're going to have to see what works to help you out. There's no rules to life, and there's no rules to working with these LLMs. But I guarantee you plus LM. So, and my buddy Michael Goff, fellow guy that used to, he's not in Austin, but shout out to Michael. He basically said he prefers actual intelligence over AI. So AI over AI. So I say I like both, because the more I have of my actual intelligence, the better. And the better the outcomes are going to be for me. So AI has been a big scary thing. A lot of times a lot of organizations banned it. How many people have restrictions on AI and like totally banned it? Anybody, companies banned AI? That's kind of rare, because I know I work with a lot of, Fortune 500 companies, and a lot of them totally banned it. They don't want people putting any data. So you're saying that everybody in here, and we have a room about 30, 40 people, you're saying that everybody can use AI, right? So some people are raising their hands. So some people have banned it. It's kind of like some people give me it depends. So one of my favorite ways to say something is yes, no, maybe, and it depends. So I'm getting some of that. So big scary thing. People are wondering, like, okay, how do we use and leverage this stuff? And so two main people out here, OpenAI, and the other big player that I'm going to say, and sorry for anybody that's Googlers or people who like Google, the big players are Anthropic and OpenAI, right? These are the two main players, and both of them are creating a lot of really good stuff, and they have models that can be used for different stuff. So Anthropic just dropped this model called Sonic 3.7, Claude Sonic 3.7. It's freaking amazing. Absolutely, it's absolutely a game changer. And OpenAI, I think OpenAI is definitely the de facto leader. And but you kind of can use them for different things, right? So I recommend that everybody in here, if you can. I know some people are more frugal than I am, but my AI budget is crazy at home. I'm spending probably $300 a month on AI stuff, personally, right? And so because I'm always at the bleeding edge. What's funny is I have all these models and stuff at work too. So I have all the stuff at work, and I have all the stuff at home too. Because I like to play around with how do I use it, period, in my whole life. So I'm doing a lot of crazy stuff. And these are the two leaders, and this is not nothing new, but I love them. I love them. All right. So basically, with this experimentation, sometimes you're gonna break stuff. So don't be afraid to break stuff. So the key thing is identifying what you can do from a security perspective. For instance, like, y'all might have restrictions, and it's like, okay, I can't put my source code up there. But then you can actually work with Azure, because that's who OpenAI is partnered with. You can work with Amazon Bedrock, but you can actually drop any data, and they have policies that will supposedly drop your data. And I'm saying supposedly because we're still skeptical, right? But Anthropic and OpenAI, with those services, they're saying we're not going to retain your data, this, then, the third. So with those services, we feel more in our customers, in my day job, we feel comfortable with because I mean, all this stuff is legal anyway. If Microsoft says we legally are not going to do it, you just have to go by their word, right? Or Google or whatever. So all of them have services that, like, you can use these safely without compromising the confidentiality of the data, the source code, and all that stuff. Now, I believe if you're not using this for your day-to-day job, I think you're missing out big time because you can do anything with this. So so what's interesting about this is like from an evolution, this is supposed to be a roach. so um so evolution of like the human mind, and a lot of people are scared about singularity and things of that nature. How many people think singularity is going to happen? How many people we got 3 people believing that it might happen. How close did y'all think we're from AGI? AGI is artificial general intelligence. Y'all think we're close to that? Yeah, I agree with y'all. I think that like what most people say that what we have now is passable for AGI. I mean, I mean, well, it depends your definition. So we have some skeptics in here, and but I'm saying if I were to go back in time 20 years ago and ask and tell me I'm talking to a machine, and some of the stuff that results I'm getting, I would be like, no way, you're talking to a machine. Well, I mean, this is we talking about different levels here. But basically, from an evolutionary perspective on how fast this stuff is moving is absolutely bananas. Now, I think that I personally believe that I think that this what this is I think this may be some kind of natural evolution for us companionship that for us as humans to use. It's just a tool to me, right? And I don't believe AGI is gonna. I don't believe AGI can exist. Um, Now, if you have some notes, you can take some notes, and I think mentioned some. I mentioned some things in later in this presentation, but a couple of things that I like. It's this really good book called The Fourth Age that talks about this. The Fourth Age is absolutely amazing. Anybody read this book? It's by Austinite named Byron Reese. Smart dude, lives in Austin. So the Fourth Age, what it talks about is it talks about how technology has always evolved and it's always changed how things work. Now, a lot of people are concerned about, is it going to take my job? A lot of people are concerned with that. How many people think that AI can replace you at your job? Your current job. I think your current job could. I think a lot of your jobs could replace. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that. I say your current thing you do. The current thing you do, I think a lot of the stuff you do is a heavily AI is going to be able to do most of what you currently do. Yeah, so basically we got a comment here that the average company, if they could save money, they would do it. So big picture here is I believe that AI is going to allow us, or LLMs or whatever you want to call it, and there's all kind of different AI stuff that I use that uses machine learning. I think eventually it's going to replace what you currently do, but you're going to be able to work on better things. And the book, and that's why I bring up the book called The Fourth Age. What that fourth age talks about is that throughout time, technology, what it's done is like there used to be people that were employed to like there are people like in the middle of New York City, there would be a traffic person to tell people where to go traffic wise, right? Traffic light comes out and replace that. There used to be people that supposedly handheld lights for people, or if you were at some kind of event, they would be carrying around candles and stuff so you can see. Well, the light bulb did that. So it's tons and tons of examples throughout history how those jobs no longer exist, right? However, better jobs exist because the light bulb exists. There's all kind of different things that we can do. Um, it's just and because of technology, the same thing is like there used to be a printing press and all this stuff. We don't have to worry about that no more. There's always better jobs being created by technology in general, not just AI. I had a comment. People want outcomes, and if they can get cheaper outcomes, So we have a comment. I don't know if y'all can hear the comment. The comment is always people are always going for cheaper, I would say outcomes, right? But I do believe that people just care about outcomes, and it don't matter. So if I can get the same, so the cool thing about your brain is your brain can fill in the blanks, and your brain is just a prediction engine. And these are a lot of the books that I read talk about. Is like you're it's just a prediction engine, right? And so eventually what's going to happen here is that if you can get a similar outcome that's good enough for somebody to replace you, it's gonna go away. But what I say is that technology has always created better jobs. So instead of doing all these manual logs that we do, like from a day-to-day SOC operations perspective, you can have an LLM look at that. So now you can actually focus on something else. Maybe you can get into reverse engineering malware or something like that. It's going to make better jobs. So you have to, in order to understand if your job's in jeopardy, you need to experiment with AI and level up. Go ahead. Question. That's what's up. So one of the best, that's one of my favorite sayings. AI is not going to take your job. Somebody that understands and utilizes AI is going to take your job, right? For sure, because they're going to be able to do it much faster. Or a programmer that understands how to use AI. For instance, like how many people has ever wrote a security policy from scratch? Couple of people. Couple of people. Right now, I could probably easily write any security policy you want to just by using chat off the rip. There used to be people that pay. So my man Josh Sokol said he just did 50 AI generated really awesome security policies for free 99. Right. So if your job was to do that, you're in a hurt locker right now. However, if you can find out a job to automate this process, maybe you're taking form input. Maybe you're being able to take what Josh said as context. I need a physical security policy, and then you add more context in. I'm at this building, this location. These laws apply to this local jurisdiction. This, that, and the third. That's where you can actually start making stuff better. Because that policy, those kind of policy, that's what I'm talking about. Now you can take in local law. You can take in this. You can take in all this information and then create better outcomes. And this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. That's how you have to be thinking. So this slide, hallucinations. This is an awesome photo here. I love AI. All these things, of course, are AI photography or AI slop is what some people call it. It makes me laugh when people talk about AI slop, because me personally, imagery and all these other things are just storytelling. For instance, like people worry about hallucinations. How many is hallucinations in here? Anybody have a problem with hallucinations? Right? Is a big problem. It's a big problem, right? You think it's a big problem? Oh, so let's go what hallucinations is. Hallucination is when the AI does something off the rails. It makes up an IP address. It makes up something from a security context. It'll maybe find a vulnerability that doesn't exist in the code base. If you're trying to use it for that, it may make a bad policy. To what Josh was talking about, that's a hallucination. Or if you just ask it something and it makes up something. Who was Martin Luther King? Martin Luther King lived in England in 19 whatever. It'll say something stupid like that, right? But my take on hallucinations is somewhat different than most people. What I truly believe is that I think humans make hallucinations all the time. Like I have coworkers that are crazy. Y'all do too. And like when I was in the military, it was the craziest stuff too, because I would hear people make up these stories talking to their family back home. Like we're all keyboard commandos where in my field, right? We ain't shot nobody, but we can type real fast. That's what we did and when I was in the Navy, right? But I would hear these guys call home acting like they were decorated war heroes and snipers. like, Like, yeah, man, it was so hard out there. I'm like, bruh, you only thing you got gonna get is carpal tunnel. That's all we gonna get. That was our biggest hazard. So humans make these hallucinations all the time, but then we want to be particular about, oh no, it made that up. Bro, if you look at any kind of report that anybody makes, anybody ever got a pen test and they had a finding that didn't exist on a network? That happens all the time. You had a pen test and it didn't find something that you knew was there. Is that a hallucination? So I would say that like what we got to do is we can't throw the baby out the bathwater. So if I can, what you can do, and people talk about this agentic approach, and it's all about managing your expectations. So how do you manage your expectations, right? So if you pop this balloon, if that was blue that came out of it, if we're talking about what kind of baby we're having, so how do you manage how do you manage expectations? You don't want surprises. Well, how you can do that is you can take a more agentic approach. A lot of y'all are hearing this term agentic AI. Y'all have heard this a lot, right? So what that means, and this is where these books that I really love come out with. So it's this really good book called The Master Algorithm that you got to check out. And it makes the point where there's not going to be one model that you use, right? The Master Algorithm, it's a really good book. The dude is one of the most known. He's like a Googler and all kind of AI stuff. This dude's a beast. He says you have to use a lot of different models, right? And this was like 10 years ago, 10, 13, 15 years ago, maybe he wrote this book. He believed that the master algorithm is actually putting a lot of models together. And that's what we're finding out here, right? So instead of being fooled by, like you can actually have agents, an agentic approach would be have an agent that can write a dang policy. All right, now write an agent to check the other agent to make sure that policy is good. And there's this really good thing called MCPs. You got a question? Well, so it's all about the context. And so what I've started doing, and I built this thing in my day job that you can create briefs and you can brief the agent. All right, and what that means is, and it's a prompt. If anybody uses GPTs in here, but it's way more intense. So when if I write a brief for an agent, I'm being super intense and intentional about what it is. Here's your purpose. Here's your output. Your output's JSON. You're like really like a briefing on how to do a job, like a job rec. I give every AI that I use a job rec now. This is exactly what you do. This is what you reference. Here's the context, all that stuff. That's how you really build it. And then based on that job description, that brief, the AI will behave accordingly. And that's what I've been doing. And I'm talking about the brief is intense too. It's like a document. Like this is exactly what you do. And because now what you have is the context is so big, you can brief it and give it the additional context that you want. So now you can have all these different agents that are good at stuff. Also, it's this new thing out called MCPs that people are using. Are we up at it for a hard stop at 1, right? All right, cool. So I'm going to tell you all the most important stuff, right? There's a really cool thing called MCPs out. Anybody ever used MCP before? Yeah, did you just look it up? Oh, that's freaking, dang. You know what's funny? They must have took it from Tron. So how it works, how MCP works, and I might have the acronym wrong. I might have the acronym wrong. It may be it, but it sounds pretty close to the dang acronym. Anyway, so Anthropic came up with this thing, and you can actually now advertise an agent through an MCP. So MCP is like a discovery protocol that y'all need to check out. This is super freaking hot. So it can say, hey, look, I know I can do DNS stuff in the MCP, and you can write an MCP server very easy. And you can actually, now you can have a lot of agents, and you can tell Claude or Chat or OpenAI, you have access to all these different services. So how this looks in the future is that you're going to have all these different agents right, defined by MCP, and you brief the MCP, and it could actually call out to different things like virus total or something like that, right? So you create this MCP and it knows how to look at a virus total. You create an MCP, it knows how to do DNS stuff. You create an MCP, so all your workflow that you normally do, everything is an MCP. Now, if you ask chat a question, I mean, no matter what your job is, right? It could be anything here. Anything that you consistently do, that's an MCP. Now the MCP can actually go out and it's advertising, so it can now look up of all the tools, your chat can look up all the tools that's available for it. And this is bleeding edge. This is life-changing. So example of what I'm doing with my code, right? I wrote an MCP to use Puppeteer. Puppeteer, if y'all know, is a something that goes out and can do a browser automation. Well, one of the cool things on Puppeteer, what Puppeteer can do, is if you're looking at a web application, now you can actually, my MCP will go grab screenshots if I reference the application now. So now I can do a pen test on an application with Puppeteer because Puppeteer can go do stuff, and I download the PNG, right? And this is then what I can do is I can go send that to Google Images and look at that. Or if I'm a developer, you can have this whole life cycle of all these different agents, this agentic workflow by MCPs, and it can do your job for you. So how do you automate yourself? And this is conversations that me and Josh be having. How do I automate myself? How do I do everything that I do from a technical perspective, whether it be a web app, doing web app or SOC or whatever security operation you're doing? If you can break that down to agents by creating really good briefs, right? And paying attention to the context, doing all those things, creating MCPs. So now that those MCPs are advertising themselves. So MCPs are like experts, like, hey, I know how to do this. And so if I know how to do that, if I say, hey, I need to look up virus total for this hash, your virus total MCP, it tells it advertises the format that it expects. The format would be hash or something, hash value. Now your regular OpenAI or Claude can actually say, oh, I can just ask this MCP here, this agent, and I just have to send it a hash, and it's going to give me the return value back. So it's like typed from a coding perspective, right? And that's the hotness right now. So if you were to look into anything right now, and I'm telling you right now, look into briefings and look into MCPs, and it's going to level your game up. Look into those two things. And if you work at a company, now some of you might be application developers or whatever. So if you have some kind of AI effort going on internally to your organization, use those few tips. And Josh can tell you, Josh, my tips, are they money? And so I'm telling you right now, this is where it's at. Go back home, learn about MCPs, learn about briefing methodologies, and you're going to be straight. So that's how we lead, not by just security. Where I'm from, how I approach this is we lead by the research and innovation, right? So you can do all kind of innovation and then bring it back to your team from a security perspective and from an organization perspective. Now, hopefully this was some gems, because I'm telling you, that's what I'm doing right now. I will be speaking at OWASP again, hopefully LastCon this year. So LastCon, I always do a yearly wrap up. This is like a mid-year wrap up for what I'm experimenting with. But hopefully I can see you guys at LastCon. Really come to LastCon. That's an awesome event. I've been speaking there every year. I'm always doing a yearly wrap up. Any questions?
I have two general questions that are somewhat complicated. So if you need to just pass along one of them.
Hopefully I'll do the best job.
One of my biggest problems with AI is the inability of it to cite sources. And it seems like that is a designed in flaw, because that way they don't have to worry about copyright infringement and it telling on itself. So my big problem is if I want to fact check this, okay, tell me where you found that information and it can't do it.
All right. So first thing, is that your whole question?
Well, that's the first.
Okay, real quick. Create an MCP to do Google, to use Google or Bing or some API and tell it to find a freaking source. Don't tell me it without finding a source. And you can brief your agent onto, hey, you need to find a source for this. And by the way, you have this MCP, this my source cider. So you can actually build, you have to build those toolings. Yeah, one question right here and we come back to you.
Yeah. The accuracy or the integrity of your LLMs and verifying that you don't have false or erroneous information in that LLM that's being used to make the decisions.
All right, cool. So he's saying that what if y'all probably heard it because he had a mic. So and plus he's a sailor, so everybody heard it. When sailors speak, people listen. So how do you, so again, what I do is I create a workflow where I can actually check the other agent. And some of the things I built this workflow thing, this rooted, and you can actually pass the same question to multiple LLMs at the same time. And then you can merge that workflow by incorporating. So of course, this all the more you do, the more money it costs. However, what we've seen is like some of the results, it would take a SOC analyst, because we built the agentic workflow for security operations where I'm at. It take a SOC analyst like 20 minutes to do all the lookups, environments total, and all this and all that. We're down to like a minute with our agent. And we use multiple things. So always don't be afraid to use multiple agents and do multiple lookups for AI for authoritative data, and then bring all the data in. And that's what the beauty of these things are. It's not that it's making up stuff. It's like it's doing exactly what a human would do, but doing it way faster. That's my approach.
Any other questions? Well, there's, we'll say, going back to that a little bit, there is the concept of the RAG and CAG concept too, which is which will get by the, what doesn't reference what its answer is. RAG means,
So retrieval augmented generation.
yeah, and it basically
means they
points
can
at
go out.
documents and things.
So
like
when I say, I'm saying, and RAG is definitely important.
Yeah.
So retrieval augmented generation means I can go out and do an API call for something. But when I mention MCPs, that's, you can use the MCP to do a retrieval generation. So that's why. So anytime you're doing RAG, you're probably doing some kind of tooling mechanism to call a tool. MCPs are the way to do the tooling. So if you're building something right now, look into MCPs, because it's one server. You set up this server, it advertises itself. This is what I'm good at. And it's going to do that retrieval augmented generation for you.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the MCP is more that orchestration server that everyone's used to, an API orchestration, service orchestration, things like that. It's coming an API, an AI orchestration ability as an MCP.
100%. And what's cool is it advertises itself. It says, this is exactly what I do. This is the format I accept. And it's freaking beautiful. And it just works.
Makes it a lot less complicated to have to discovering it every time that you're after doing.
Or have to recode something. So a lot of times when we first started building tooling, we had to build a tool every time. Like now you just, and then you have to change all your code to use the tool, right? So now with MCPs, the tool advertises itself and you just load up you just say, hey, here's all the tools you have. And it just knows to use the tools now, just like you do at work.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing it up. RAG is super important.
Yeah, RAG and CAG things. Those are two terms you might look up on some of the things about AI. But unfortunately, we're after time here. So Marcus will be here for a few more minutes in the room, but otherwise we kind of need to wrap this up. Thank you all for attending the March 2025 OWASP Austin chapter meeting. And thank Marcus.
Thank you.
doing
Thanks
this.
for having me.
And hopefully see everybody, hear everybody for next month. Thank you all.
Yeah, I can